My name is Ishlt Nakagawa. I'm a palliative care clinician in Columbia University in New York. Um, Today, I'm going to discuss how to approach this difficult case when ECMO becomes bridge nowhere. I don't have any financial disclosure. When we start ECMO, usually we hope for recovery or transplant or LVAD. Sometimes it's too soon, so we call this bridge decision. These are interchangeable. Unfortunately, when the next step is not available, then the ECMO becomes bridge nowhere. We just heard perspective from the both the local hospital and the big high volume center. But this bridge to nowhere could happen both before after the transfer. So the question is, how often does this happen? So this is the data from the ELSO, the International Registry. Among the 27,000 VA ECMO cases, hospital mortality is like 60%. And as you can see, the majority of those happened within the first 2 weeks. And some of them die in organ failure or hemorrhage. So kind of they declare on their own. But this, family request means, the decision was made to stop the LVAD. So this is a so-called bridge nowhere situation. And it happened like 14% of the case. The first question is, in this bridge nowhere, are you comfortable with discussing MCS withdrawal? So this is the data from the study. They did a questionnaire that about the LVAD withdrawal, not ECMO. But as you can see, the less than 30% of heart failure clinicians are comfortable regarding turning off the LVAD at the end of life. 13% of the clinicians feel that stopping the LVAD is the same as euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide. And 30 to 40% of the physicians feel stopping the LVAD is different from mechanical ventilation or IV fluid or nutrition. So let's talk about the definition first. Physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia. And euthanasia, that is an act that intentionally causes death in someone who is very sick or suffering. A PAS is a physician helps a patient in taking his or her own life by intentionally providing lethal dose of medication with knowing that the patient might commit suicide. So this intentionally is the key. How is this different from withdrawal? So we have to think about two things. One is physician's intent. In withdrawal, our primary intention was to remove the burdensome treatment, not necessarily hastening the death. On the other hand, PS or euthanasia, primary intent is to terminate the life. More importantly, after a patient died, we have to think what caused the death. In withdrawal, what caused the death is underlying disease, such as heart failure or multi-system organ failure. But PAS or euthanasia, what caused the death is medication provided by a physician. So because of these two reasons, there are clear distinction between those two, medically, ethically, and legally. So the basic ethical principles is as long as the burden outweighs the benefit, patients have the right to refuse any treatment, to request withdrawal of the treatment they previously consented. And withhold and withdrawal are the same. This right is not unique, which means that the withdrawal of the ECMO is the same as withdrawal of the ventilator or dialysis or artificial nutrition. Also, how does the decision have to be made? Who will decide? Patient decision is much more important than clinician decision. Some clinicians might feel uncomfortable, but they should not impose their moral views on patients. What criteria, benefits, and burdens are determined by the patient? Each patient is unique, and they look at the thing in a different way. That this request can be made even if the patient is not terminally ill. And clinicians should not impose their moral views on patients, but you don't have to be comfortable with this. And if uncomfortable, clinicians should not be compelled to participate in this process. But you cannot abandon the patient. You have to look for the some clinicians who can take over the care. Okay, understood. But then when can we stop ECMO? And how can we talk to the patient and family? So I'd like to share this three-stage protocol. This is how I approach this kind of situation. First stage is sharing knowledge. Second stage, clarifying goals of care. And third stage is negotiating treatment options. I go to the second stage only after I clear the first stage. I go to the third stage only after I clear the second stage. The first stage, sharing knowledge. Here, we need to explain the medical condition. Your heart is very weak, that's why you're on ECMO, and your next step is not available. But at the end of the day, we need to convey, in order to clear the first stage, we need to tell them one information, that is prognosis. And in the case of bridge nowhere, we have to convey two things. One is MCS can keep the current condition, keep you alive and with or without, mental status. But this is only in the ICU. And also, this is not going to continue forever. Within days to weeks, some complications could happen. Your condition could get worse. So this is not going to continue forever. I think many clinicians are able to do this, able to clear the first stage. But the very common pitfall is this. Then you start asking, do you want to continue ECMO? Do you want CPR? Do you want blood transfusion? And you ask a lot of these yes/no questions, and this is wrong. What's happening here is you are trying to jump to the third stage without clarifying the second stage. You just share the prognosis, so let's clarify the goal based on that prognosis. So I cannot emphasize this more. The second stage is missing all the time. So probably this slide is the most important slide in my my entire presentation today. But you can forget everything else, but please remember these questions. So what are the questions you should ask to explore goals? This is not about ECMO, not about the CPR. We have to ask, okay, so after knowing the situation, what is important to you? What is important to him? What are you hoping for? Or, what are you most worried about? Tell me about him. What kind of person is he? What makes his life meaningful? So ask these questions, and you need to let them talk and listen. Sometimes families say, he suffered enough, just let him die peacefully. Sometimes patient is awake and he can tell me, enough is enough. I cannot walk around, I cannot go home. This is suffering. I don't want to continue this anymore. If they say this, I think we should recommend to withdraw the life support. Sometimes they say, we hope for miracle. So in this case, we have to continue the life support. Sometimes they say, we know he's dying, but we don't want to pull the plug. Or, to me, being able to communicate with the family is important. So I want to maintain this condition as long as possible. So in this case, we continue the life support, but maybe we can recommend, whenever your condition gets sick, let's not escalate the level of life support, and let's not add new treatment like dialysis or starting pressors. So my point is, and also, we can limit the tests or interventions. My point is, as long as you do a good job, you did a good job in the second stage, and you have a goal, and all the answers come sort of automatically. So the second stage is very important. So conclusion is that mechanical circuitry support have unique characteristics, and it poses challenges in bridge to nowhere. However, the basic ethical principles are the same as the other type of life support. And close communication about goals of care, second stage, is crucial. Thank you very much.